Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. On the glowing planet Varan 3, where trees floated and rivers sang, a royal festival was held once every 7 years. This was the choosing ceremony, a time when leaders and nobles from all over the galaxy came to offer themselves to the royal bloodline. But this year, no one wanted the princess. Princess Ziri of Varan 3 stood quietly near the crystal balcony. She wore a soft blue gown and a crown shaped like moonlight. Her violet skin shimmered under the twin suns, but her eyes held sadness. She was small, only 4 feet tall. In a world of tall warriors and proud rulers, she looked more like a child than a future queen. But she was the last princess of her line. In the palace hall below, suitors from across the stars lined up to greet her. But each one stepped forward, and then stepped away. "She's too fragile," one muttered. "She could never lead an army," another said. "I would crush her just walking beside her," laughed a third. Their words were soft, but Ziri heard everyone. She stayed quiet. She always did. She had trained her voice to stay inside. Her heart? That was harder. Inside it hurt. It burned. But she didn't show it. Not until the next guest walked in. The air shifted. Tall, broad, in heavy silver armor, a human. He wasn't dressed like the others. No jewels, no robe, just a clean uniform, strong, boots, and a quiet look. He was over 6 feet tall with deep brown eyes and sharp features. But there was something gentle in the way he moved. He bowed low, lower than any other suitor that day. "Sergeant Ronan Hale," he said simply. "Of Earth." Ziri looked up, surprised. He wasn't like the others. He didn't smile with pride or smirk with judgment. He just waited. Still, respectful. "Princess Ziri," she said softly. The hall was silent. Many stared, expecting him to turn away too. But he didn't. He stayed. Later, at the royal feast, Ziri sat alone at the end of the long golden table. The food was colorful, but she wasn't hungry. She felt like a statue, placed for display. The suitors laughed and boasted about their victories, but Ronan said nothing, until one of the larger princes shouted, loud enough for all to hear, "Maybe the princess doesn't need a husband. Maybe she needs a step stool." Laughter filled the air. Even the servants smiled. But Ronan stood up. "She doesn't need your jokes," he said calmly. The hall fell quiet. Ronan looked at the prince. "She stood here all day, facing the same insults from all of you and didn't flinch once. That's more strength than most of you showed." The prince blinked. "Are you challenging me, human?" "No," Ronan said. "I'm ignoring you." Turned and walked toward Ziri, and to the surprise of everyone, he sat beside her. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled. "For what?" "For making me feel real again." That night, Ziri returned to her chambers and stood by the window, watching the stars. She had met hundreds of suitors, all bigger, all louder. But only one made her feel like she was seen, not as a joke, not as a duty, but as a person. She touched the side of her crown and whispered his name. Ronan. Far below in the guest quarters, Ronan sat by his bunk, staring at the stars too. His commander had told him this mission was just a formality. Earth didn't need alliances with weak royalty, they said. But something in Ziri's quiet strength made him doubt that. He saw fire in her, hidden, but ready to burn. And for the first time he wondered what kind of ruler she could be, if someone truly believed in her. Back at the palace, a group of royal advisors spoke in private. The human showed her kindness. "She is responding too much. This is dangerous. She must marry one of her own kind." They sent a silent order. Keep them apart. But fate had already shifted, and 2 paths, one small, one tall, had quietly started walking toward each other, step by step. The stars over Varan 3 were quiet tonight. The palace had gone to sleep, its lights dimmed, its halls hushed. But Princess Ziri stood awake in the shadows of her private garden, hidden behind a wall of glowing vines. She wasn't wearing her crown, just a plain tunic and soft boots. No one knew she was here, except for one. Ronan Hale walked through the garden's open gate at midnight, guided by a quiet message she had sent earlier. Come alone. No guards, no titles. He came exactly as asked, unarmed, unarmored, just himself. When Ziri saw him, she smiled. Not the stiff smile of a princess, but the real one she kept hidden. You came. I said I would. The garden was beautiful. Floating lights drifted around tall silver trees, and a small waterfall poured into a glowing pond. But neither of them cared about the view. Ziri led him to a clear space behind the fountain. It was her training area. Simple wooden poles, scuff marks in the dirt. A narrow, balance beam over a shallow stream. You train here? Ronan asked, surprised. Ziri nodded. Every night. In secret. Why in secret? Because they say a princess must look graceful, not powerful. She picked up 2 practice rods, lightweight, carved with symbols, and tossed one to him. Care? For a match? Ronan caught it and smiled. You sure? I'm small, she said. Not weak. They circled slowly. He moved first, but gently. She blocked, quick, precise, then struck low, forcing him to step back. Impressive, he said. Still holding back, she replied. Maybe. The second exchange was faster. This time she caught him with a clean tap on the ribs. Ow, he laughed. Okay, now I'm awake. Ziri grinned, and for the next 10 minutes they danced, not like enemies, not like suitors, but like equals. After they stopped, both breathing hard, they sat on a smooth stone bench beneath a flowering tree. I've never fought someone who didn't treat me like glass, she said quietly. I've never met royalty. Who made me fight for real? He answered. She looked at him. He wasn't handsome in the prince-like way, but there was something in his eyes, steady, respectful, present. He didn't talk to her like she was a child. He listened. Ziri picked up a small stone and rolled it between her fingers. Do you know what my name means? She asked. No, it means last light. He nodded. That's beautiful. She shook her head. It's a warning. I'm the last of my line. If I fail, the light goes out. Ronan didn't speak for a moment. Then, what if you're not the last light? What if you're the first spark? That made her stop. No one had ever said that to her. No one had seen her as the beginning, only as the ending. She stood and walked to the stream. He followed. Ziri stepped onto the narrow beam, above the water, balancing easily. I walk this every night, she said. Helps me think. Looks narrow. It is, she smiled. But I know where my feet go. She stretched out her hand. Come. Ronan hesitated. He was twice her size. He'd break the beam. I'll fall. Then I'll catch you, she said. He laughed, but stepped forward. Anyway. Together they stood on the narrow beam, small and tall, alien and human, above running water under starlight, and for a brief, quiet moment. There was no war, no throne, no pressure, just 2 people. Far away on a balcony high above, a pair of golden eyes watched through a lens. An advisor whispered into a calm crystal. They've grown close. The reply came sharp. Separate them, now. But down in the garden, Ziri didn't care. She felt light for the first time in years, and when Ronan looked at her, he didn't see her size, or her title. He saw a warrior. The royal training grounds were packed with nobles, soldiers, and guests from every corner of Varan 3. Colorful banners waved under the twin suns. This was the Velas Trials, a mock tournament held during every royal choosing ceremony, a tradition where suitors competed for fame, pride, and sometimes power. But this year, Something was different. Someone unexpected had entered. Princess Ziri. She stood at the edge of the arena, dressed not in silk, but in tight leather armor and silver bracers. Her short blade rested on her hip, and her eyes, usually soft and shy, burned with fire. The crowd whispered, "She's entering, seriously? She won't last a single round. She just wants attention." But Ziri didn't flinch. She looked forward, calm and still, because today wasn't about them. It was about her. Near the high platform, Ronan stood with his arms crossed, watching every move. He hadn't been allowed to enter the tournament. Foreigners weren't permitted, but he didn't care. He was here for one reason. Her, the announcer's voice boomed across the field. First duel, Princess Ziri of House Nalari versus Prince Kiro of Sivol. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kiro was tall, muscular, a known champion. He had mocked Ziri just days earlier. Now he smiled as he stepped into the ring. "This won't take long," he said, grinning. Ziri simply bowed. The signal horn sounded. The duel began. Kiro charged in, heavy and fast. Ziri danced aside like water. He swung, she ducked, he stomped, she rolled, and then she struck, a fast, clean hit to his leg. Not enough to wound, but enough to drop him. The crowd gasped. Ronan's mouth twitched into a grin. But it wasn't over. Kiro stood with a growl. "You dare?" he hissed. Ziri readied herself. "You dared first." He charged again, this time faster, angrier. But as he lunged, his shoulder lit up, a hidden energy spike activated beneath his armor. Illegal. Dangerous. Ziri stumbled back. Kiro moved in for a real blow, not mock, not practice, real. And that's when it happened. From the edge of the crowd, Ronan shouted, "Enough!" He jumped the barrier before anyone could stop him. He sprinted into the ring, unarmed, and stepped between them. Kiro's blade stopped inches from Ronan's chest. Gasps, cries, guards rushed forward, but Ronan didn't move. "Disqualify him," he said to the officials. "That spike is against the code." The judges hesitated, then scanned Kiro's armor, confirmed he was cheating. Kiro was pulled away, shouting, and Ziri stood frozen, breath sharp, hands trembling, not from fear, but from rage. Later, inside the royal hall, Ronan stood before the council. "You broke protocol," one elder said. "I protected a princess," Ronan answered. "She chose to fight. She should face risk. Risk is fair. Assassination is not." The room grew quiet. And then Ziri entered. She didn't wear armor now, just a plain tunic. But she walked tall, proud. "I requested Ronan's help." She lied smoothly. "He didn't break rules. He followed mine." "Why would a princess choose a foreigner?" another counselor asked. Ziri looked them straight in the eye. "Because he sees me." The council argued long into the evening. In the end, Ronan was banned from the games, but not from the palace. He could stay, but only as an observer, a warning, a guest. That night, in the garden, Ziri sat by the stream, her feet in the water. Ronan joined her, quiet. "I shouldn't have stepped in," he said. "Yes, you should have," she replied. He looked at her. "I wasn't supposed to be part of this world." She smiled. "You already are." Far above them, a message left the palace. Encrypted, urgent. Their bond is growing. If not stopped, she may actually choose him. The Hall of Stars was silent. Only the voices of the High Council echoed inside, soft, sharp, cold. Princess Ziri stood alone in the center. Her hands were folded. Her crown was gone, her gaze steady, but her heart was heavy. "We warned you," said Councillor Varex. "Your connection with the outsider has brought disorder." "He protected me," Ziri answered. "He disrupted royal tradition." Another snapped. "He humiliated a noble. He exposed a cheater. That is not his right." Ziri took a breath. "Then maybe your rules need changing." Gasps followed. Even her own advisors looked shocked. But she didn't step back. She didn't flinch, because something inside her had woken. From the side doors, Ronan Hale was brought in under guard. He walked calmly, chin lifted, not fighting. He wasn't shackled, but he may as well have been. The eyes of nobles, generals, and scholars burned into him. Outsider, warrior, human, the High Council turned to him. "Sergeant Hale, you are hereby stripped of guest status," said the lead counselor. "You will be returned to your vessel and escorted off Varan 3. Immediately." Ronan didn't argue, he just looked at Ziri and she looked back, tears behind her calm face. "Let me speak," she said. "No," the counselor replied. "This is finished." Ronan stepped forward. "Then let me speak." The room stilled. He turned to the crowd. "I didn't come here to win power or favor. I came to guard a diplomat. That was my mission." He looked at Ziri again. "But I stayed because I saw something most of you don't." He pointed to her. "She is stronger than all of you. She's been pushed aside, ignored, mocked, and she still stands here, head held high." The room murmured. "She doesn't need my protection," he added. "But I would protect her all the same, not because of duty, but because I believe in her." Ziri turned her head. She couldn't cry now, not in front of them, but her chest burned with feeling. The council gave its final word. "Ronan Hale, you are to be off-world by dawn." He nodded once, then looked to Ziri. They weren't allowed to touch, so they bowed to each other. Slow, deep, respectful, and final. Hours later, under the silver night, Ronan packed his few belongings aboard the small Earth shuttle he'd arrived. And Ziri came to the edge of the launch field unnoticed by guards. She carried something wrapped in velvet. "I thought you'd left," she said. "I was waiting, hoping. For what?" "For you." She handed him the bundle. Inside was a royal crest, carved from crystal. "I'm not allowed to give this," she whispered. "But I want you to have it." He took it gently. It shimmered with her house symbol, a rising star above a small flame. "Ziri," she reached up and pressed it into his chest. "Don't forget me." Never. They stood under the stars. No guards, no walls, no rules. Just her, small, fierce, glowing with something brighter than any sun. And him, tall, strong, finally unsure. He leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. No kiss. No words. Just a moment, held in silence. The shuttle doors closed. The engines, lit, and the only human who had ever bowed lower than a king, was gone. In her chambers, Ziri stood before her mirror. She removed every piece of jewelry, every trace of softness. She looked into her own eyes and whispered, "They banished him to keep me weak. But all they did was remind me how strong I am." Far away, deep in space, Ronan sat in his pilot seat, fingers tight around the crystal, eyes fixed on the star charts, and a promise in his heart. "If she calls, I'll come back, no matter what it costs me." The morning skies of Varan 3 were no longer soft and golden, they were black. Clouds of smoke rose from the southern edge of the capital, and sirens echoed through the once silent air. The Red Talons, a violent war clan from the outer systems, had broken their treaty, and they had chosen the day after Ronan's exile to strike. Princess Ziri stood on the palace tower, wind whipping through her hair. Below her, panic ruled. Soldiers shouted, children cried, civilians rushed to shelters. The High Council argued behind closed doors, and for the first time in her life no one told Ziri what to do, because no one knew what to do. Inside the strategy room, Counselor Varix barked orders. "Lock the gates, activate shields, wait for reinforcements." "But the shields are old. 2 sectors have already failed," said a guard. "Then fall back. Let the outer city burn if it must." Ziri entered, her voice cold. "No, we defend everything. No one gets left behind." The room fell silent. "You do not command here," Varix hissed. Ziri stepped forward. "I do now." They laughed. But then the palace comms crackled. "This is Lieutenant Aran. Enemy warships breaching orbit. No aid from Earth. We're alone." The laughter died. Ziri stared at the map. Her fingers moved across the console, tracing troop lines and weak points. "She knows their pattern," whispered one captain. "She's studied them." "I trained in secret," Ziri said. "While you talked politics, I prepared for this." She turned. "And now you can follow, or you can hide." Outside, the fighting worsened. Flames reached the edges of the royal sector. Walkways collapsed. Skies turned red. But for the first time in generations, a Nalari princess led the defense. Ziri stood at the front line, blade in hand, armor strapped, tight voice commanding troops like she was born to it. She moved fast. She struck clean. And wherever she went, the soldiers pushed harder. But then, a war beast breached the inner gate. 3 stories tall, glowing red eyes, clawed limbs that crushed stone. Guards scattered. Ziri stood her ground. She lifted her blade, but it was too large, too fast. Then, suddenly, a plasma shot hit the beast square in the head. It screamed and fell sideways. A second shot followed. Then a third, all perfectly aimed. Ziri turned and saw him. Ronan, hale, back in armor, helmet under one arm, eyes locked on hers. "Hope I'm not too late," he said. She didn't speak. She just ran to him, and he pulled her close, even for just a second. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you. If you call, I come." The guard stared. He was not supposed to be here. But no one stopped him now, because right behind him, his old unit arrived. A full Earth combat team, disavowed, but loyal to him. Together, they joined the defense, and the battle turned. In the skies, Ronan's dropships shot down enemy bombers. On the ground, Ziri led squads through the burning markets, rescuing trapped families. Side by side, they pushed forward, human strength and alien precision working as one. Hours later, the last enemy fighter fled into the clouds, and silence returned. Smoke hung in the air. Bodies lay still. But the people stood, and they looked, not at the council, but at her. The small princess who didn't run, who didn't wait for permission, who fought with them, and beside her the tall warrior from another world, who came back even when he had every reason to stay away. Ziri raised her blade, not as a symbol, but as a promise. "We will never bow again. Not to fear, not to tradition, not to weakness. We rise now together." And the crowd cheered. In the council chamber, one advisor whispered, "She has become what we feared." "No," another said. "She has become what we needed." The fires of battle still smoldered across the capital. Varen III had survived. But it had changed, and so had its princess Ziri, once mocked for her height and softness, now walked through broken streets as a symbol of strength. But she didn't walk alone. By her side stood Ronan Hale, the tall human soldier who had once been exiled. Now, every eye followed them, alien and human. Troops from both species moved together, repairing walls and helping civilians. The scent of ash still lingered, but hope was in the air. Inside the old armory, Ziri checked her gear in silence. Her armor, slim and flexible, now bore the burn marks of war. Ronan adjusted his shoulder plate nearby. He glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "Better than I expected." He tilted his head. "That's not saying much." She gave a small smile. "I'm tired," she admitted, "but not broken." Suddenly the comm crackled. New movement outside the city walls. Possible second wave. Ziri and Ronan locked eyes. No time to rest. Moments later, they were back at the edge of the battlefield. Ziri leading a fast recon team, Ronan backing with a heavy support unit. The enemy wasn't retreating after all. They were regrouping. What came next was chaos. Explosions shook the cliffs. Enemy mechs thundered forward. One of Ziri's scouts screamed, pinned under rubble. Ziri ran to her without thinking, blade drawn, but a rogue blast threw her sideways. She hit the ground hard, gasping. A second mech turned toward her, targeting. Too fast, too close. But then, a blur. Ronan leapt in front of her, shield raised. The blast hit him full force. He dropped. To one knee, groaning, but stayed up. Ziri stared at him. "You're insane," she said breathlessly. "Just committed," he replied. She climbed back up, dust on her face, fury in her bones. They charged together, her speed, his power. She moved like lightning. He stood like a wall. They cleared the ridge together, and when the dust settled, the enemy fell back, for real this time. Later, under the broken moonlight, Ziri stitched a cut above Ronan's brow in a makeshift med tent. "Could have lost you," she said quietly. "You won't," he replied. She looked into his eyes, tired, raw, but always focused on her. "You know I was taught that love is weakness?" she whispered. He didn't answer. She went on. "But today, it made me stronger." The silence between them stretched, but it wasn't empty. It was full, with something that didn't need to be spoken yet. A bond, unshaken. Earned. Ziri stood and walked to the tent flap. "Tomorrow, the council will try to claim the victory," she said. "But the people already know who fought for them." "You," Ronan said. She looked back. "We." Across the camp, soldiers, human and Villari, ate together for the first time. Some even laughed, and above it all, on the ancient banners of Varan 3, a new symbol was quietly painted by the people, a tall figure and a small one standing back to back. One carried a sword, the other, a shield. Together. The war was over, but the real battle was just beginning. Inside the council dome of Varan 3, the 12 ruling nobles sat in a circle of glass and gold. Above them, the stars shone through the clear roof, silent witnesses to the fate of a planet. Princessy. Ziri stood alone in the center. No armor, no crown, just a single braid down her back, a simple tunic, and the crystal crest of her royal house pinned to her chest. She looked small, but her voice was calm. "We stood together. We fought together. And we survived," she began. One counselor coughed. "With help from outsiders. From allies," she corrected. "From a human," another added, eyes sharp. "Who doesn't belong here?" Ziri stepped forward. "Maybe. The problem is that too many of you still care more about bloodlines than bravery." The chamber grew quiet. She turned slowly, letting her words sink in. "Before the war, I was laughed at, rejected, told I was too small to rule." She raised her chin. "But I led. I fought. And not from behind walls. I bled with my people." "And where were you?" she asked coldly. No one answered. At the far end of the chamber, the doors opened. Ronan Hale entered, tall, silent, watching. He did not speak. He didn't have to, because this time she was speaking for herself. Ziri turned back to the council. "I have waited all my life for permission to lead." She paused. "I no longer need it." One of the council elders stood. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I choose myself. I will no longer wait to be chosen." She pulled a small sphere from her belt, an ancient device known as the voice stone. Only rulers could use it. She activated it. Her voice echoed through the palace and far beyond. "I, Ziri of House Nalari, stand as sovereign ruler of Varan 3. Not by size, not by blood, but by strength of will proven in fire." Cheers erupted outside the dome where crowds had gathered to listen. The people had already chosen her in their hearts. Now she claimed it out loud. A counselor shouted, "This is not how it's done." Ronan stepped forward now, his voice calm. "No, this is how she's doing it." Ziri turned to the crowd, her face glowing under the starlight. "This planet is no longer ruled by pride or tradition," she said. "It is ruled by unity." She paused. "And I will lead it as someone who was once cast aside, so no one else ever feels that again." She walked down the long hall toward Ronan. He bowed, low, again, lower than any man ever had in that chamber. Ziri stepped up to him, took his hand, and raised it before all. "I name Ronan Hale my royal protector," she said. "Not as a token, not as a guest. but as my choice. The crowd outside began chanting, Ziri, Ziri, Ziri. That night the sky over Varan 3 lit with lights, not war celebration. Inside her chambers, Ziri stood by her window, looking at her city, her people. Behind her, Ronan approached. You did it, he said. No, she whispered. We did. He stepped beside her. They said nothing for a long time. Then Ziri turned to him. You know, I used to dream of someone coming to rescue me. He smiled. And I rescued myself. But you reminded me I could. She reached out, took his hand. No more politics, no more tradition, just two people. Small and tall, alien and human, bound not by rules, but by respect and something much deeper. In the years that followed, under Ziri's rule, Varan 3 became the first planet to formally unite Valari and human settlers. The palace walls no longer kept people out. They welcomed them in, and legends would whisper that once upon a time, a small princess who was rejected by all stood tall enough to rule the stars. Because a 6-foot human didn't lift her up. He stood beside her until she rose on her own.